Welcome to Before the Score, episode number 26. I'm Steve Samra. Last week we took off so you guys could focus on the Black Lives Matter movement. We hope you all donated money, signed petitions, went to protest, and let your voices be heard. The fight doesn't stop there. Equality needs to be achieved. It's not a 1 week thing, so we will keep on fighting for equality. Black Lives Matter, and do never forget that. But let's get into sports for today, and let's start with NASCAR, because usually we're the only people that talk about NASCAR. And recently, ESPN was talking about NASCAR, and that does not happen too often. So something big had to happen, and NASCAR banned the Confederate flag from events. Dan, you're the other NASCAR guy in this group. Tell me, what do you think about this move?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, it should be a no-brainer. I mean, you have the argument from these Southern racists, I should say, that say this flag is heritage. Well, it doesn't mean heritage. It's not a heritage flag. This is a racist flag. It's all over NASCAR. I mean, we've been to a few races. You see it flying all the time. It's just these. I mean, you look at the demographic of people who watch NASCAR, go to attend NASCAR races. Yeah, it's that type of people that are going to be the ones holding Confederate flags. So I'm happy NASCAR. They put out a video with all the drivers talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you saw it on Bubba Wallace's car at Martinsville last night. So I mean, look, I love what NASCAR's doing. It is a sport where it's a more Republican sport. There's no question about that. So, and deeper South sport, I should say too. So I'm glad the steps that they've been taking.
Well, guys, I got something to say about this. The one thing that bothers me about this, number one, is why didn't they do something like this earlier? Why do they have to wait for, this thing to come up with the George Floyd and everything and the Black Lives Matter? Why did they wait to address it after all of this? You get what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, this should have already been addressed, because we all know what that flag represents. We all know that people look down upon that flag. That's the old way of America. And America is a melting pot. So I never understood why that flag was still being used, and why, an organization like NASCAR would even still, allow something like that to be showcased in their sport, even though they don't promote it. So I do think they should have done this way before.
Well, NASCAR never really put a stop to it because, one, there's never been a big push to, stop the use of the flag. And if a large percentage of their fan base if them being allowed to bring that flag in is going to get them more fans, more customers, then they're not going to say anything until this whole social issue is in the forefront of everyone's mind, where if NASCAR just sits tight and just doesn't make a move like this, it just looks worse on them. So this is something that should have happened a long time ago, but now especially there was no way avoiding this. So they're going to lose some fans over this, but those are fans that you're okay losing.
Yeah, Andrew hit the nail right on the head right there. Those are fans that can get the hell out of NASCAR. They give us all a bad rep. We love NASCAR, and it's fun. It's a fun sport I think it's a fun sport to watch. I know a lot of people don't think it's a fun sport to watch, but live, it's also very fun to go to. And it will bring in a different demographic of NASCAR fans and modernize NASCAR. And NASCAR was losing a lot of its ratings. It was kind of stuck in the past. There wasn't any new stars. And the PR team has really, really been on fire recently. The midweek races, that's an amazing idea. And that's something that I hope to see more of in the future. I know we've talked about that in past episodes. And then this whole situation comes up. And what do? You push Bubba Wallace a little bit, which is great. Bubba Wallace is a great driver. He deserves the recognition anyway. There needs to be more diversity in NASCAR anyway. But Bubba Wallace has been a great speaker for the sport. The paint scheme, and now banning the Confederate flag, it's all been just fantastic moves to raise awareness to bigger issues. And Bubba Wallace last night going out and racing like a champ, racing for a lot of people. LeBron James, Alvin Kamara watched the whole race. I never thought I'd see those two things together. Maybe Alvin Kamara will get into the sport. So you never know. I think that NASCAR has really turned over a new leaf with this move.
Well, yeah, you saw that one driver who retired from the sport. First of all, don't even know his name. This guy,
I never heard of him.
It doesn't even matter. He's a nobody. He was a truck series driver. I think he ran 18 races in his career, finished in the top 10 once. He's irrelevant. There's no reason to even be talking about him. I shouldn't even brought him up. So, I mean, he's getting publicity now because he's the only one to say, okay, this is the final straw. I'm done with NASCAR. Dude, like, you suck. You know, you had no business being in the truck series. You're terrible. So no one's going to miss you. Goodbye, you know?
Yeah, good riddance. He is not a good ambassador for the sport. And there's also somebody I wanted to mention is Jimmy Johnson. This guy's on his way out, but he has been at the forefront of all these issues. Ty Dillon as well. He was the first driver to actually speak out about the Black Lives Matter movement. And these are guys who are risking a lot with their fan base, with this whole movement and everything. I know Dan was talking about how the NASCAR fan base isn't always the most diverse and understanding fan base. So I think that this is a welcome change for NASCAR.
Yeah, it was crazy to see. You know, I mean, like, we're looking less than a month ago where Kyle Larson's getting banned from the sport because he's using, you know, a inappropriate racial slur on his live stream when they're doing like fake NASCAR races or whatever he was doing. I wasn't watching. And now you have NASCAR, you know, taking steps of that and then going on with this route that they have been. It's just amazing to see how NASCAR is really putting themselves in a social forefront for other sports.
Yep, definitely agree there. Let's move on from NASCAR. Before we get into the MLB, let's talk about some other sports because I know we got a lot of MLB to touch on today. Let's talk about football a little bit because another man at the forefront of this movement is Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick may be signed next year. There's rumors, where there's smoke, there's fire. Do you think a team will take a chance on Kaepernick next season now that the protest will seemingly be allowed?
Well, I'm going to get this started here. Number one, Colin Kaepernick and this whole movement and this whole, thing that he had going for him. We all know, what he was doing with the taking the knee during the national anthem, during the Pledge of Allegiance, whatever you want to call it. To me, I understand that some people were kind of turned off by, just the way this guy, his actions. But at the end of the day, he has been out of the sport for a few years. So I don't care whether or not this whole thing happened, whether or not now we're looking at Colin Kaepernick different. The whole fact is that this guy hasn't played in years. And to me, he's not the type of player that you take that flyer on. He's not somebody who's really going to change the game for you. So regardless of the fact that Colin Kaepernick is being in the headlines more and more these last few weeks, to me, that doesn't do anything. I don't think this guy ever plays again in the National Football League.
I don't think it changes much with Colin Kaepernick. I think he had a decent shot when last year, I think he had that workout that kind of got turned the wrong way when he switched fields last minute. That kind of was his last big shot to get back in the NFL because he's at the point now in his career where he's not this young, high potential guy where you're not going to sign him and risk upsetting a part of your fan base, whether you agree with it or not. For somebody that is 31 years old or getting up there in age and doesn't bring much besides maybe competing for a starting job.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Colin Kaepernick and this whole Black Lives Matter movement, and you got to say a majority of the country, I would say a big majority of the country does agree with, what Colin Kaepernick's ideals and what he's been bringing to the table for all these years, what he's been saying is so true. But this is still for NFL owners. It's going to be proved to be a headache. I'm not saying I wouldn't sign him because you never know. I think he's still a talented quarterback. Yes, Pablo makes a great point. He's been out of the league for a few years, so maybe he's a little rusty. But you look at some of these scrub backups in the league, I think Colin Kaepernick still has a good shot to be at least a backup in the league. But these owners are going to see the headache of maybe the 10 to 15% of their fan bases that are going to be pushing back and losing revenue off that. Yes, it's a good PR move for a majority sense. But, you look at these owners, they're very stingy. I don't really see many of these owners. There may be one or two. Like you said, there might be a possibility. But I'm gonna believe it when I see it when Colin Kaepernick's back in this league.
Now, Colin Kaepernick was out of the league for 3 years, but it's not like he was just sitting home eating Doritos or something. He was still working out. And they're saying that he's in the best shape of his entire career. And taking 3 years off of football, it's going to hurt a little bit. But for his body, it is going to help immensely. Look at Rob Gronkowski. He took 1 year off. He's already back, and he says he's in the best shape of his life. 3 years off, not getting hit, not getting your body rung up and all that stuff. He's going to be in better shape than he was. So if Colin Kaepernick gets a shot, I think he's going to kill it depending on the team he gets signed by. And I do think he will get signed. I don't think he's played his last snap in the NFL, at least as a backup. If he's willing to take less money, that's always been the problem with Kaepernick, is that he wants more money than he's been worth the last couple of years. It's also Cam Newton's problem right now. These guys don't want to take backup quality money for a year or so to try to get their career back on track. Whether they deserve to be starters or not is debatable. I don't see a situation this year, unless injury, where Cam Newton or Colin Kaepernick is going to start a game. But when injuries come, you know that teams take chances. The Steelers, I think they should have tried to sign Kaepernick last year. I thought that would be a great move for them, and I thought, but you know, the Steelers fan base, also not one of the most diverse fan bases, also not one of the most diverse cities in America is Pittsburgh. So, and then Miami, I thought maybe with Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen, but he made those comments about Cuba and Castro, so that didn't work out. But I do think Kaepernick, if he's willing to take less money, a leap of faith almost, I think that he will be able to get signed. And I'd be surprised if he's not.
Well, Steve, another thing about Colin Kaepernick, right? To me, this guy is a nobody turned somebody just because of his voices and opinions. So if you're a team that's really looking for a quarterback or looking for somebody to be a backup quarterback, I don't think Colin Kaepernick is the guy you want on your team, regardless of the positive PR that you're going to get to the organization. This guy is going to bring nothing but drama, and that's not something you really want.
Let me interrupt right there. Colin Kaepernick was never a nobody.
He brought a team to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he brought a team to a Super Bowl. Almost brought him 2 years in a row to the Super Bowl. This guy was a stud. He was arguably the best quarterback in the NFL that Super Bowl year, and he was arguably the hottest star in the entire.
And how long ago was that?
It was like 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Talent-wise, like
years
stats-wise, he got ruined by Chip Kelly, and then that was like the perfect storm with him. And when he started kneeling, was one of his worst years as like a starter. So it was that kind of like combination of like ruffling some feathers and having like a down year that kind of got him out of the league.
I mean, the guy's a queen. I wouldn't want to have him on my team.
I wouldn't agree with that at all.
I think you're in the minority in this opinion, because I really don't think that's true. Colin Kaepernick, if anything,
If you look at it talent-wise, like he is one of the top like 64 quarterbacks in the world. Like he deserves the stick on
the
roster as a backup, but like if you're looking at a backup quarterback, you put yourself in the shoes of an owner, and that's just like they just see it as a risk. They just see it as something that's not worth pursuing for one of 53 guys that like probably is going to make an impact on your team. But I mean, he deserves to be in the league. I don't think that's in question.
And I think that he will get a shot when injuries do pile up. If a team that has been talked about that I think that if their starter was to go down would take a chance would be the Seattle Seahawks, would be the most popular choice, I think. But I really thought the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to take a chance on him last year. I was very surprised that they stuck with Mason Rudolph that whole time. And then Mr. Duck Hodges, because they both proved to be pretty terrible. And they actually cost themselves a chance at the playoffs with that. And then Kaepernick, of course, didn't want to go the XFL. Ended up being a good move for him because the XFL did fold. But rumors had it that Kaepernick did want $25 million from a league where its highest paid player wasn't even making $1 million. So Kaepernick, Stephen A. Smith has hit on it best, I think, saying you don't question his motives for being an activist. You don't question if he loves football. You question what his plan is, because he says he wants to play football, but he only will take a certain amount of money in a certain situation. If he was really serious about playing football, he would really take any situation he could get his hands on. So Kaepernick, he's not a diva, he's not a queen, but he may be a little high on himself. He should be high on himself, but he should take a chance if he gets it.
Yeah, he does not have Odell Beckhamitis. He is not in that bracket.
No, he doesn't. He's just somebody I'm tired of hearing about. I just honestly, he bothers me.
Okay.
Who else bothers you? Who else are you tired of hearing about?
No, just him. Just the fact that the right deal or the right situation hasn't come across, and he hasn't played in the league in 3 years, and now we just keep talking about him because of this thing that's coming out, and now we're looking back at it, and this whole thing with Roger Goodell and the NFL. I know we're going to touch upon it, but right now I need to go into it because it's bothering me. This whole thing with Roger Goodell and not supporting, the whole kneeling of the flag, and now out of nowhere he wants to come out and say that he sides with the Colin Kaepernick thing and he sides with the Black Lives Matter. Now looking back on it afterwards, the whole NFL and Roger Goodell all look like a bunch of hypocrites. And that is something where I understand that things happen in the world where you have to change your mindset and kind of say things to make yourself look good. But at the end of the day, when you don't act upon it when something like that first happens, and now you address upon it because the whole world is addressing upon it, to me, that just makes you look weak, and it does not make you look good at all.
I actually think it makes them look better because they were very vehemently against it to begin with, and now they realize they were wrong. They educated themselves, and they changed their stance, which is a tough thing to do. That's a really tough thing to do, to admit you were wrong, especially when you're a billion-dollar corporation and you're heading it as a commissioner, and you were sued by this man who tried to start this movement. Now you look back on it and you say, we're sorry, we were wrong. I think that was actually a pretty noble thing for the NFL to do, for a league that's not known for being noble.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a noble thing to do, but then again, they had no really choice, because you see every major sports team, every major corporation going and standing with the Black Lives Matter movement. They couldn't be this billion-dollar corporation and not side with it, regardless of how they stood 5 years ago when this happened. They were like, it looks good, it's the right thing to do. They definitely probably have a much better opinion on it than they did 5 years ago, but it's also something that they didn't have a choice. There was no alternative. They couldn't just like stay silent or stand against it. That wasn't an option for the NFL.
Well, I want to shift gears just a little bit, real quick. I just want to get your reaction, Steve, to James Dolan's comments on the whole Black Lives Matter movement, with the Rangers and Knicks posting the same statement less than a week ago.
So James Dolan, as you know, he's really always on the forefront of every issue, knowing that guy. I think that he was wrong not to address it earlier. I think he waited a little way too long. And I think his original stance was wrong, saying that he's not qualified to speak on this thing, because we're all qualified to speak on it. We're all qualified to speak our minds and educate everybody on what the whole situation is, and learn, because that's what we have to do. That's the only way we get better. And James Dolan, a billionaire, owner of two of the premier franchises in New York, almost owned the Mets a couple of years ago. This guy is one of the biggest figures in New York, just can't seem to do anything right. Even if you don't believe it, for PR purposes, believe it. This guy, and you're owning a team in a predominantly black sport, and you're not going to come out and say you support the movement. I just didn't get the move at all. And it just proves this guy has no handle on himself, on what he has to do as an owner.
Yeah, the statement, it didn't even say Black Lives Matter. It never mentioned George Floyd's name. Like, I just thought it was a weak statement from, I mean, you look at the biggest brands in all of sports. The Knicks are a top 10 biggest brand in all of sports. This guy owns a mega team. And you come out with a statement like that, I just thought, like, I mean, a lot of people already hate Dolan. I mean, this is like the last straw. Like, come on, man. Like, you had a chance to do something good and make yourself look better, and he couldn't even do that right.
Yeah, the guy can't do anything right, and I'm not surprised. As a Knicks fan, we know that James Dolan, he's not been the right guy to lead the Knicks. And one day, hopefully, the Knicks will get a new owner. I mean, before all this coronavirus stuff even happened, Spike Lee was on First Take talking about how he thinks James Dolan's racist. So that should have told you all you need to know. If Spike Lee, the guy who's been going to Knicks games for 40 years, thinks that, there's something up there. Let's move on to another topic in the NFL. RG3 says, even though he's a backup, because we're talking about backup quarterbacks, that he still views himself as a starter, and eventually he wants to be a starter in the NFL. Do you think he'll ever get that chance again? And the RG3 fans?
I mean,
I don't think he would have to. Yeah, he would have to, like, in the situation he's with now in Baltimore, there would have to be some sort of injury or something where he gets a chance to showcase his abilities as an actual starter before someone gives him the reins to a job. Because I don't see it happening otherwise, unless there's like an injury somewhere that takes place.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at him in college. I mean, at Baylor, he's one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in the last 10, 15 years come out of college, like his college performance. And then you go to the NFL. I mean, he had a good year with the Redskins. I think they made the playoffs, 1 year with him, and they lost. And then you just see the knee problems. And like, he's a type of quarterback that is obviously going to be more mobile in the pocket. But when you're having your best part of your game being reduced because of your injury history, I don't know if he's on the level of where he could be a starting quarterback in the league. I mean, he has to prove himself. I mean, God forbid Lamar Jackson does get hurt and he, steps into that role. Maybe he can. I mean, on a very good offense, he could probably prove himself. But I don't know. I think that's a long shot.
Pablo, ain't got any thoughts on RG3, his boy?
Honestly, RG3. To me, when you look at Colin Kaepernick and you look at RG3, Colin Kaepernick, although I did say that he went from nothing to something. Obviously, I do recognize that this guy had some type of past. Now, when you look at RG3, he was so hyped up and so gassed up. We all thought he was going to be the next big thing. So everybody thought, but he just wasn't that. So the fact that this guy, when he was in the league, he wasn't that good. When he was a backup, he wasn't that good. Another thing, he was injured quite frequently. This is somebody who I think if Colin Kaepernick has played his last snap and you guys think this guy has a shot, I don't think there's any way that RG3 ever sees, another game in the NFL. If anything, if I were him, I'd hope that the XFL start up next year, if it starts up again, because this guy, he has no shot in the National Football League.
Real quick before you go, just my last point I forgot to make. I think right now RG3 is in the best situation schematically wise that he could possibly be in. I think any other team he goes to, it wouldn't be as great of a fit that he is in now. Of course, he's not the starter right now, but the system, him and Lamar Jackson do have a lot of same qualities, and that's why RG3 is that backup quarterback on that team, because if Lamar was to get hurt, he could really fit in well and with that system. So if he went to another team, of course, teams could adjust schematically, but right now, I think Baltimore is the best situation he could be in.
Yeah, an injury to Lamar Jackson would be not a good thing, but for RG3, it would be a great thing because he could get a chance to showcase his ability. I've always been a huge RG3 fan. I was sad when the Redskins got him because he would have to face my Giants, and we did face him, and we split with him the 1 year he started, and then, of course, the injuries went by. I do think if he didn't tear his ACL, that this guy would have been one of the really greats in the NFL. He was really just unbeatable his first year, and then the whole knee injury just disgustingly tore up his knee, very bad, and he just hasn't been the same since. Even his 1 year with the Cleveland Browns, I was very hyped up for him, but that team was just so bad. It may have just been a bad look on him going 1-15 that year. Now, as a backup with the Ravens, he got the win last year in Week 17. But if he gets another shot, maybe he can make his name known again. And maybe some team who's just dire for a quarterback will take a chance on him. But it doesn't seem likely that he'll be a fortified starter in NFL anytime soon. But Dan, I wanted to ask you about your boy, Dalvin Cook, possibly holding out until he gets a contract extension. Will we see Ezekiel Elliott holdout situation with Dalvin Cook?
Well, the first thing with Dalvin Cook, you can't blame him. Can't blame him at all. He wants his money, and he definitely deserves a big salary to be rewarded with. Where the Vikings stand on their salary cap is going to be very interesting because you just saw Anthony Harris, the safety, just get franchise tagged, and they have to work out a long-term deal with him, which the Vikings do plan on doing. So Harris is first. Although Cook is the biggest part of this team right now, minus Kirk Cousins, I guess, Cook is the biggest part of this team. Harris is first. He's in line to get that contract, and they've been talking for months now on Anthony Harris getting a contract on. So we got to see what happens with that, I think, first. And then with Dalvin Cook, I hope it doesn't go into the season. I think the Wilf family is a very good ownership group. I think they could really get something going with Dalvin Cook here, because you look at the offense. You look at Dalvin Cook and you look at Stephon Diggs. Last year, 50% of their offensive yards came from just those two players. So if you're not having both of them on the field next year, there's going to be some real problems with your offense, no matter who you're replacing with. I like their backup running back. I like Justin Jefferson, Alexander Madison, their backup running back, and Justin Jefferson, but they're not Dalvin Cook and Stephon Diggs yet. So you got to get Dalvin Cook because Kirk Cousins is such a better quarterback with Dalvin Cook on the field. Hopefully it's not that Ezekiel Elliott holdout. I hope Dalvin Cook, I heard reports that he wants more than McCaffrey. I don't really know how true that is. I don't think that is true. I'm hoping they could go like a 4-year, $13 million per year basis, like what David Johnson has, and hopefully something works out. I'm a hopeful Vikings fan, of course, but it does worry me a little bit.
Yeah, and he wants big-time money, big-time David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott money, and that David Johnson contract did not work out for the Arizona Cardinals. Cook already has that one ACL injury, so I don't know. He's such a big part of that offense. He was so good last year that it's going to be really tough if he holds out and you don't play him this year, because the Vikings offense needs that running back, that Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison, I like him. He's good, but he is not Dalvin Cook. That's just simple as that.
Yeah, you look at Gary Kubiak, the offensive coordinator now, like that his system is to run the ball first. I mean, Kevin Stefanski really got all of his schematics from Gary Kubiak and how to get that play action pass going, how to get the bootlegs going because of the rushing attack. The first attack is the rushing attack. And Dalvin Cook, man, he is so important to this Minnesota Vikings team. And we'll see, man. We will see.
Yeah. So before we get into if there will be an MLB season, there was an MLB event yesterday, and it was the MLB draft. And I just want to know, why does nobody care about the MLB draft?
I think it's mainly because you look at every other sport besides maybe NHL, but you look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, and the players that are drafted at the top of the draft, you're going to see them within a year or two minimum. So the MLB, you're drafting a lot of high school guys and college guys who you're not going to see for at minimum 2, 3, even 4 or 5 years. So these are guys that you're not expecting to see. It takes a lot of the excitement away if you know you're not going to be able to see this guy make an impact on your team for at least 3 years. I just kind of like, it's nice to see your team drafts, but you're not going to be glued to the TV because you're not expecting to see this guy anytime soon. So it just doesn't have the same level of excitement. There's not a lot of exposure to the college baseball, the high school baseball. Like, no one knows these names unless you go out of your way to like research MLB prospects. Like, you're not going to know a majority of these names.
Yeah, Andrew's completely right. But in addition to that, I mean, you look at the MLB, like first round picks, it's not, I think probably of all the 4 major sports, first round picks probably don't make it as much. I mean, you look at the best pitcher in baseball right now, Jacob deGrom, ninth round selection. So it's such a deep draft. There's so many rounds where players could come out of nowhere. No one knows. So like your first pick, the first overall pick, I mean, he could be good. You have no idea. Maybe he won't even start one MLB game. So I think also with baseball not having the biggest marketing compared to other sports too, that plays a factor, but you just don't know with these guys.
Well, number one, the best pitcher in baseball was actually taken number 1 overall in the first pick of the 2008 draft. The Pittsburgh Pirates would, draft future Yankee ace Garrett Cole, but that's beside the point. Relax. Okay, he's the best pitcher. All right, so
would you be saying that if he was on the Astros?
Absolutely not.
I have zero respect for the Astros, but so Andrew, you were completely right. Number one, the reason why we don't care about the MLB draft is we do not see it on TV. You have the NCAA basketball. You have football, college football on TV, and that's just such a big thing. That's it's been hyped and it's been promoted for years, and it has such a huge and tremendous fan base. College baseball is great in its own right, but if you're not going to see it and if it's not pushed on TV like all these other major sports, you're not going to care about it. That's number one. Number two, obviously in these other sports, they're drafted and then they're instantaneously brought up to the big leagues. In baseball, you can't do that. It's a much harder sport than the other sports. They have to develop. It's very different, especially when you're talking about drafting an 18-year-old kid. You can't just put a guy out of high school and put him in the lineup for the New York Yankees. It doesn't work that way. And to me, that is why this draft is not that big. But that being said, I'm super excited about who the Yankees got. I really don't know him much, but his name is Austin Wells. He's a lefty. We drafted him as a catcher, but from what I understand, he can play first base. He can play the outfield. And I'll tell you what, man, a nice left-handed swing in the middle of that order. In a few years behind Glaber and the Martian, and we're still going to have Judge and all these other guys. I'm super excited about the Yankees' future.
Pablo, I want to ask you a question. Who won the football championship for the NCAA last year?
Football championship. From this year or last year?
This year. The most recent one.
LSU.
Who won the College World Series?
I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, wasn't it a goofy team?
I have no clue who won it. I'm just asking because I wanted to prove a point.
Yeah, it's a good
point. A couple years ago it was Coastal Carolina. I know I was like,
I wish I could tell you. I have no clue who's won any ever College World
Vanderbilt wins a
Series.
lot.
Vanderbilt, yes, we saw Vanderbilt play the one time in Tennessee. So
That's your MLB players. We had no idea who any of them were.
That's our claim to fame with Vanderbilt. But baseball is the worst marketed sport in the entire U.S. Not even close. NASCAR is better marketed. UFC is better marketed. Freaking WWE is better marketed.
Hockey. Can you really say hockey's more is marketed more?
MLB is better marketed than NHL.
I think it's close. It's getting close.
Hockey player that's promoted. I don't. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
I think I think you see more of Alexander Ovechkin than Mike Trout on ESPN.
I think that has more to do with Mike Trout.
I still see Derek Jeter,
reserved guy.
Frank Thomas. I mean, they're still
Thomas.
They used to be a lot better. MLB's marketing used to be so much better.
Frank Thomas, are you using eugenics or something?
No, I would definitely argue NHL's marketed better than the MLB.
I don't think so.
Even
NASCAR. I mean, can you even say that?
I think NASCAR has been marketed a lot better.
You look back like a decade ago, and like everybody in the world knew who Derek Jeter was. No, and that time in the world, nobody could probably not. Well, a majority of the world couldn't name like the best hockey player in the world.
The most popular baseball player. The most popular baseball player right now is Aaron Judge. And he's not the best baseball player, but he's the most popular baseball player.
I don't know about that.
Mike Trout.
Yeah, you're living in a bubble if you think Aaron Judge is the most popular baseball player and Garrett Cole is the best pitcher.
No. Did I say he's the best? I'm saying he's obviously.
I don't know. I don't think
he's the most popular.
I think so. Outside of the sport, majority of people don't even know who Mike Trout is. I'm not saying he's the best.
Who Aaron Judge is.
Well, he's very marketable. He plays in the biggest city in the world. I mean, this guy is he's at the forefront. He plays for the New York Yankees. Mike Trout, we all understand he's the greatest player and he might go down as one of the greats, but he plays for the Angels, a poverty organization. I mean, come on, man.
Okay, the Angels are in a poverty organization. They just are not run very well. They spend the money. They just got Anthony Rendon.
You know what I mean? They're similar to the Mets. You know, the Mets are the little brother to the Yankees, and the Angels are the little brother to the Dodgers. That's just how it is. They're the B team on the second best city in America.
Whatever you say, Pablo.
He's a bigger baseball player right now than Aaron Judge is, in my opinion.
Say that again?
David Wright right now is more well-known than Aaron Judge.
No, he's not.
I think
if you're a baseball fan, obviously, but if you're somebody who's like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's Aaron Judge. He's the 6'7" player for the Yankees. That's it. Because he's the most marketable. The guy is huge, and he plays in New York. That's why if I were Major League Baseball, I would promote this guy more. Honestly, they should be promoting Mike Trout more, but they just don't.
Well, why would they waste all that money and time promoting someone who plays like 25 games a year?
Here we go.
Somebody who's not even going to be on the field when the fans go to the game.
Okay.
If they started the season in March, he'd be in extended spring training right now.
Wait. So are we still on this?
No.
Are we still on this? Is Pete Alonso better than Aaron Judge? I'm ready for this. Because he's not.
No.
He's not, because Pete Alonso, I already know what's coming. I see it coming in the comments. If we had a comment section,
you're the one bringing it up. Are you that concerned about like your franchise player that you have to immediately ask someone's opinion on at all times?
Player. I said no. He's the most popular player in the sport. He is.
That's incorrect.
Bro, he has the highest jersey sales. This guy is the number one.
Pete Alonso is also a lot more marketable than
Aaron Judge. No, he's not.
He is.
No, he's not.
He's going to be. He's going to be. He's going to be. The guy is going to.
The Yankee logo is one of the most known logos in the world.
Aaron Judge needs to play another full season.
Of course it is.
So does Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso needs to play more than just 1 year before we just say he's the next coming. Come on, man.
Aaron Judge is an old man.
Garrett Cole pitch one pitch for the Yankees before you crown him the King of New York? How about that?
Come on, bro. Come on. I can't be excited, man. We signed number 45.
I can't be excited about Pete Alonso having a Rookie of the Year season. Now we have to wait, but now you can be excited and I can't.
All right, let's bring this back here. How can the MLB improve their marketability?
They can ban Pablo every game. possible and just get them to like another sport.
Yeah, Pablo, you give baseball fans a bad name, man. Especially Yankee fans.
I don't know what I said. I really don't.
Everything.
Steve, sticking with your question, MLB needs to change their game up a little bit. I mean, it's not a very marketable game to have. You need to have it go faster. You need to have it be more exciting. I understand the baseball purist. This game has been around for longer than every other game that's going on right now in sports, but it's outdated. There's no question it's outdated because you see every year the NFL takes a step higher and baseball goes a step lower. They need to compete with these other big four sports leagues. So you have to change the game a little bit, make it more exciting so more people will watch it, and then you can market it better. That's the easy answer, I think, here.
All right. So I'm gonna hop in here. Number one, why I understand that you wanna push the game forward and you want to make it bigger and you want people to you just want more eyes on the product. But at the end of the day, this is baseball. This is something where the integrity of the game over these last 100 and something years have not really changed. Now you're going to change it just to appeal to people who don't even watch the sport in the first place. Yeah. That is something I do not agree upon. If anything, they should be promoting these guys more. They should be allowing these guys to have a little bit more free reign because all these MLB players are robots. They're afraid to say things. And a lot of these players, you really don't see them have a personality. So when a guy like Trevor Bauer, per se, comes out and says whatever he wants to say, people are like, whoa, this guy's a dick. Whoa, this guy, he has a lot to say. But at the end of the day, if you look at the National Football League and you look at the NBA, that's majority of their players. Majority of their players, number one, they're all over ESPN. They're all over social media platforms, and they're pushing their narrative. Look, I'm the guy. This is my thoughts and opinions. And in these all these other sports, you really don't see that. So that is something that I do think they need to do. They need to kind of showcase these guys more because these guys have personality. They're not all robots, man.
Do you know why, though?
You look at all the other major sports, and another way like to make baseball more marketable and more popular to the younger generation without taking away from the integrity of the game is, like you said, making them express themselves more. Like you can't have it where you can't kind of form the game to the traditional fan where they're going to get pissed if they pip a bat flip when they hit a bomb. Like, let them express themselves. Let them bat flip the shit out of a bat. Let them throw in on a guy. Let them, like, I don't know, have more free reign to express themselves and kind of attract the younger fan bases. Like, let them, like, act more loose and fun on the field and just not, like, super traditional that, like, the 40, 50-year-old fans be like, yes, that's the baseball I know and love and I grew up with. You need to change it up at, like, not at its core, just change it up a little bit where it's more exciting for the younger fan who is just getting into sports and kind of get that second wave of fans coming in.
Pablo, you say to market the players more, but the players don't want it. Baseball players are boring. They're boring people. They don't do anything. They're creatures of habit. They play baseball. They go home. They fish. They watch TV. That's them. That's baseball. That's what they do. Do you think anybody gives a damn what Aaron Judge is doing at home? People would rather be in tune to seeing what LeBron James is up to. Hell, I'd rather know what R.J. Barrett's doing than Aaron Judge. People, they're boring people. That's what baseball is. It's a boring sport played by boring people. I love baseball, but
you look at baseball in like the steroid era. You see like Sammy Sosa, you see Ken Griffey Jr., you see Mark McGwire. These guys are like energizing, and that kind of style of play and that kind of just like charisma and that kind of excitement around the game of baseball just isn't there today. Like there's ways to like have baseball the same at its core and still just make it more exciting than it is right now. Like I love baseball, so I'm not complaining, but I really understand why the average fan does not like the sport.
Look, there are so many young players. I mean, you look at a guy like Fernando Tatis and a guy like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Juan Soto. These guys bring so much energy to the table. And these guys, look, at the same token, I love the bat flip. And obviously, you're going to love the bat flip if you do it and it's in a big situation for you. You're going to hate the bat flip if they do it against your team and you don't like this guy. But at the end of the day, baseball, they've also gone away from things like plunking the batter or things like sliding hard into second or contact plays. Now, I understand why they did it. But at the end of the day, they also kind of made this kind of kind of like a weak sport, bro. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I mean, you can't really slide hard into second. And if you do, it's an automatic double play. You can't throw at a batter. You get ejected. To me, that's all a part of the game. If you're not intentionally trying to break somebody's leg, or if you're not throwing at somebody's head, I think it should all be allowed, bro. Just let these guys have fun.
The thing is, I just want to bring up real quick. You look at last year, like with the whole Pete Alonso cleat situation for 9/11. Like, you need approval from the league to wear just cleats that commemorate. That's the word I'm looking for. Commemorate the 9/11, like in New York, and like the league has to approve it, and they probably wouldn't have approved it if they just didn't do it. So like he had to do it without the permission. The league has to expand. It has to help these players out, express themselves more. And you're right with that, Pablo, but the league has to do a better job when it comes to all these type of things, to be more lenient and relaxed, which they haven't been. They just want it their way, in one certain way, and that can't happen.
Pablo, I want to make one comparison before we talk about if there will even be a baseball season, is that the MLB kind of reminds me of the WWE, where all players follow this kind of mold and everything is kind of produced in such a way just to be safe and very PC. Meanwhile, other sports like the NFL and the NBA are more like an AEW, where things are looser, where players are allowed to show more emotion, where players are allowed to be themselves. And that's where the MLB can take some notes and change. Let's talk about if there will be a season at all. Rob Manfred yesterday said there will be a 100% chance there's a season, but I don't believe him. It doesn't look too promising right now. So tell me, what do you guys think about that?
Well, he has the ability to mandate a season be played at prorated pay at the minimum or the maximum, whatever it is, at 40-something games. So I think he's at a point where he's not going to let it get to the point where there's not going to be a single inning of baseball being played. So I think at minimum we'll get 40 or so games, which doesn't make sense as a baseball fan who's used to 162 game season. And the way they would do it, if they don't come to an agreement and they don't have some special plan worked up for the MLB season, it's going to be a 42, 48 game season with prorated play for the players, no expanded playoffs, and it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be terrible. So I think it would help the two sides come to an agreement if you know that no matter what, baseball is going to be played, might as well get it played to fit the current situation, to have a better format and a better system in place, opposed to just being forced upon them.
Yeah, the fact that they're talking about 40-game seasons, like what are we talking about here? Like, you can't do that. You got to find a way to make this more interesting. And like one way that just comes to mind real quick, just make it like a World Cup type thing. You have the divisions face each other in a group stage technically, and you play each other for 30, 40 games, and then you advance out of your group, and then you play other teams into the playoffs. I think that would be a lot more exciting. It would make the games more, appealing to regular people to watch, like high stakes baseball being played. But just 40 regular season games, the games will be more exciting because like teams don't have that much wiggle room, like they have to play very well. But when you're making a World Cup type bracket, I think that would be a lot more interesting than the proposal they've had.
Well, yeah, definitely, guys. And when you look at 40 games, to me, if it's going to be 40 games, I don't even care for the season. Who cares? It's not. There's the big difference between, when we originally said, 100 games. Oh yeah, 100. Okay, I'll take it. But now when you're down to 40, bro. 40 is like it's like a month. Oh, just over a month of games. Who cares? Honestly, I don't care. If it's 40 games, who cares, bro? And another issue that I have here, the more and more they delay this thing, the less games we are playing. What was it? A few weeks ago on Before the Score, we were talking about that they were aiming, and I had an inside source that they were aiming towards a July 4th beginning for the season. Now, you look at all these other sports. You look at the NBA coming back. You look at NHL coming back, NASCAR coming back. Wrestling, to some capacity, is starting to have a little bit of fans, a little bit of action in their arena. Baseball has done literally nothing. They have done nothing. They haven't moved anywhere. And for a sport that hasn't even had the season started, don't you think they could have come up with something a little bit better than 40 games? I mean, mix it up, just like Dan said. Have a tournament. Do like an East versus West thing. Do something like a World Baseball Classic, something we have never seen before. You cannot tell me that you're going to crown a champion after 40 regular season games and whatever kind of playoff you're going to have. A goofy team is going to walk away with the World Series trophy. That is what's going to happen if they go with this format, and I absolutely hate it. To me, 40 games, no season. Just cancel it. I don't want to see a 40-game season. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, look at the Nationals last year. They go 19-31 to start. They wouldn't make the playoffs in this proposed system. That's actually too many games, technically. And then they go and they win the World Series. So obviously you have to have a longer season. You have to spice something up.
I'll tell you what, I bet you if the Yankees won the World Series in a 40-game series, Pablo wouldn't be complaining about that.
Look, I mean, you would get excited because your team won, but it'd be like, 2020, yeah, that's the year we only played 40 games. I don't know, man. It's like a 27.5 trophy team. It's not 28, time champions at that point.
Yeah, but to quote you, I agree. Who cares? Who cares? A 40-game season would suck. You're right. And if they can't agree on something better than that, then baseball is completely screwed. They have already taken a hit with the way they've been, these negotiations have gone so public, and it does not look good. It is a horrible look for baseball. There is no sport that has suffered more throughout this coronavirus pandemic than baseball. Even the MLS was creative. They're bringing 24 teams to Disney World along with the MLB, along with the NBA, and they're having a tournament of 24 teams to crown a champion for this year. Creative. Maybe it'll get me into soccer. Maybe we'll talk about soccer on here for the first time ever. That's the MLS. The MLS is better than MLB at coming up with something. It's really tough to watch baseball go down this road. And if they do not figure out a way to come up with a better proposal than that 40-game proposal, that's a road that may never come back down for some fans. I know, Pablo, I know you guys will be into baseball still, but it's definitely going to take a hit in my book because it is a horrible look for baseball. But let's talk about our questions before we end the show. We got two of them right here. They're both football related. So Mario Hanna says, who's this year's fantasy football Lamar Jackson? And by that, he means the breakout star that'll be available late in the draft.
Well, I mean, I don't know what with this one player I'm thinking of. Probably going to be more drafted higher. Probably projected even a top 10 quarterback. But Kyler Murray this year, I think he has the capability of being a top 3, if not, the Lamar Jackson type quarterback in fantasy this year. You see his athleticism. Like, there's no question about how athletic he is, and he get those rush yards and those rushing touchdowns. And then the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury, he's going to be racking up a lot of throwing yards, and adding a guy like DeAndre Hopkins is only going to help him out. And they've made adjustments, getting that offensive line a little better. I think, and their defense hasn't really made like a great step forward. So I think Kyler Murray is going to be on the losing end of a lot of games, going to be throwing the ball a lot, making some runs. Kyler Murray this year has a chance to win MVP, not just fantasy football, but fantasy football and stats based. He's going to be on the field a lot, so I like him.
The one guy that comes to mind for me, because you say Lamar Jackson from last year, and someone that kind of comes out of nowhere and just lights the league on fire. I don't know if it's going to be to that degree, but I think Steve's going to like this pick, and I'm thinking Drew Lock out of Denver, because you look at that offense. I said this during draft day or draft week that I love the pieces they added on offense: Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy. That offense in Denver, if the offensive line holds up and Drew Lock kind of plays and builds on what he did in the second half last year, like, he's got the talent to kind of spread the ball around and use those high flying weapons in Denver to kind of, I don't know how great Denver's going to be as a team, but I think they'll put up points. So you look for a guy like Drew Lock and kind of late in the draft, and hope you get like the high home run swing out of him.
Well, I'll tell you what. I wish I went second overall because that was my pick right there, Drew Lock. So I'll give you somebody. This is somebody who was projected to be one of the best quarterbacks last year, and his stock is going to take a hit because that's what happens in fantasy. If somebody does you wrong, you're not going to draft him next year. So this is somebody I think will have a good year, and it almost pains me to say it because Pablo hates him, Dan loves him. It's Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to have a really good year. Everybody's talking about how great he's been in virtual OTAs. And I really think that this new offense is going to benefit him and Nick Chubb a lot. We saw Kirk Cousins put up big numbers in Stefanski's offense last year. And I think Baker Mayfield will be – I think he's in a situation that's even better than Kirk Cousins. So I think Baker Mayfield is going to have a good fantasy year for all you Browns fans out there. And we got another fantasy football question. It's actually another fantasy football sleeper question. So let's try to not talk about quarterbacks, but this is from Tarik A, and he says, way too early fantasy football sleepers.
When I look at what the LA Rams did in their draft and taking Cam Akers, you look at Todd Gurley moving on to the Atlanta Falcons. I think Cam Akers is going to be a very overused running back in this system. You see Jared Goff is having some problems lately, throwing the ball, and the Rams offense hasn't looked good. So I think Sean McVay could really get Cam Akers rolling. You see a lot of these rookie running backs coming into fantasy relevance and making big impacts. The Kareem Hunts of the world, he had such a big, monstrous fantasy season. Of course, Saquon Barkley. Cam Akers, yes, a second-round pick, but I expect him to be a very used running back in that system.
So if we're going away from quarterbacks, the one guy who I was a little bit high on last year and was a little bit disappointing, but coming into the draft a few years back, he had a lot of hype, and that's Ronald Jones in Tampa. I think he kind of fits that Arians, Tom Brady offense. He kind of got in a committee last year with Peyton Barber, but he was obviously the more talented back there. I think second year in Bruce Arians' system is going to help him a lot. I think Tom Brady's a guy who checks down a lot, and Ronald Jones is a good receiver of a back. I think he'll get a lot more playing time than he did last year, and I think that Tampa offense is going to put away enough points where if Ronald Jones gets enough touches in that offense, I think that he'll put up pretty good numbers.
I can't believe you just said Ronald Jones is your sleeper, and I hope you pick him in the draft when fantasy football comes around, because I kept him on my bench for like 2 years, and this guy was a waste of a bench spot. But I got two people. One's not really a sleeper. One is, I don't know, he's a rookie. But my first one is Kenyon Drake, and I think this is somebody who's his stock has taken a huge hit, but people don't realize how good he was with the Arizona Cardinals, and now David Johnson not being there. Cliff Kingsbury's going to run him a lot. He's obviously a fan of Kenyon Drake if he trades away David Johnson to keep Kenyon Drake. So I think he's going to have a good season, and the Cardinals offense is going to be pretty potent this year. And my sleeper, who may not really be a sleeper depending on how people view him, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this guy has top 10 running back potential in fantasy in that offense. I think he's going to be everything Damian Williams was and more. I watched a lot of LSU games last year just because that offense was so fun to watch, and this guy is the player that stood out to me along with Joe Burrow. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is somebody I would look for. He might even be like a third or fourth round pick, honestly, in some PPR leagues. So I don't know if he's a sleeper, but buy into the Helaire hype there. That's all we – yeah.
Well, final thoughts, just real quick. I just want to shout out the Mets real quick. A couple of days ago, there was reports of the Harris Blitzer company that owns the Devils and 76ers looking at a bid for the Mets. So let's hope. I would love to have them own another sports team. Anything to get the Wilpons out.
Yeah, we'll end the show on a positive note there, because if the Wilpons are out, that's pretty positive for us Mets fans. Before the Score, episode 26. Thanks for listening.